Retard alert, class!
Presenting the Short Bus Veteran! Hello, welcome to the channel. This is a short intro, right? Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a little bit of a formatted discussion because I plan on chopping this up into 3 separate reviews. But yeah, we're going to be discussing spoilers for BLOODRUTH, YAIRA 2, and the Great War Separation. Don't look at the YouTube title of this. I did not make any mistakes. But yeah, so I think like a while ago, maybe it was our last review, I talked about how it really seems that Eric is ramping up production on the comics, and that, like, you know, eventually if this, you know, the pace keeps going, he's going to get to the point where we're going to have to pick and choose comics from the Rippaverse because there's no way we're going to be able to afford the comics, and we're already there. Like,
yeah,
it's March and the 3 comics have already come out. 4th one is going to be here like next week or something like that.
Yeah, and there's like 3 campaigns going on. It's a lot.
Yeah, not even counting the freaking, what is it? The Ripazine. So, yeah, like I said, we're gonna just be discussing. So this is, you know, you can watch your review or whatever, but we're gonna be, this is kind of for hopefully if you've read it, or maybe you just don't care to read it and you just want to listen to us talk about it. And I think up until this point, we've been pretty favorable of Rippaverse's stuff overall. And so we're gonna get into that with this new stuff, right? I don't want to talk too much before we actually get into that review. But yeah, so we've been kind of following this journey, and now we're at a point where we're definitely not getting all of the Rippaverse comics at this point. We just don't have the money to do that. I don't make any money from reviewing it. This is for fun. So yeah, Evely, anything before we start getting into it?
No, we can just dive right in, man. Just dive right in.
Dive right into. All right, so first book that we're going to review is BLOODRUTH. And this was written by the Saska sisters, along with YAIRA as well, was written by the Saskas, and we're going to get into the sequel in a bit. Yeah, I don't who's the artist on this? Michael Montanet? Which I don't think I've,
yeah, I'm not sure.
Brett Smith, which I don't know if I've seen that name on the other comics before, but again, we'll get into that. Do you have a roundup for this?
Usually just like a story rundown. Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah, a little story rundown.
Yeah, so I mean, this is full spoilers if you're watching, because this is a very condensed version of the entire book, is more or less. So it starts off, and BLOODRUTH is having a fight with her mother. At least I didn't know it was her mother at the beginning. I wasn't sure if it was her. I confirmed it later, but at first I'm like, is this her mom? Is this her sister? I'm not sure. And I like went back to the other book with Isom 2, trying to figure out if there's family stuff in there, and I couldn't really find anything.
I mean, you can see later the whole family's there. There's only one. She's holding hands with the husband. It's the mother.
But right out the gate, you don't know that. So I'm like, who's this lady? You know, that kind of thing. And she's got her plasma children that are trying to attack. So she's trying to kill BLOODRUTH. And I forgot to mention, even before that, there's a setup where they have Abel and Cain. And it's told that basically she comes from a cursed bloodline. So like the first murder, she's the descendant of all of that. And in addition, in the lore, it was God put a mark on the damned, but other people like can't kill the damned, because if you do, he'll be mad at you, and then vengeance is like 7-fold. He's like, those people are for me, and that was kind of.
Well, that is biblical. Like the mark of Cain is something that is like biblical. Like there is.
Is it that if you?
Well, I mean, they have like,
you're just not supposed to kill, period. But if you kill somebody that has the mark, I don't know. God's gonna be like, I'm gonna get you 7 times over.
Well, no, it's like I think Cain. I don't remember exactly, but it's like there's Cain, the immortal guy that's walking around, has a mark, or maybe his children. So I've heard it before. I've seen it in other stories. There is also the racist interpretation where it's like people down years ago were like, "Oh, the black skin is the mark of the Cain." Yeah, that was
I've
like
never heard
part
that.
of it, like being like you know, part of the scare. I'm saying that like, oh yeah, black people are they're cursed.
Oh, geez.
Obviously not true. But
yeah,
I was kind of like, is he taking that aspect?
No.
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 Jeez. So anyway, she's fighting her mom after they get that setup where they have Abel and Cain there. She escapes to a church, so the mom can't follow her onto the holy ground. And whenever she walks in there, Stefania, it's Stefania, right? That's praying, and she scares her off. Pretty sure it's Stefania. No,
Yeah.
you don't remember? Okay,
Me too. I even marked in my notes. I'm like, oh, I forgot she was here.
Yeah. She's just like a couple panels. She's praying, and she's like, sometimes I do bad things, but I have good reasons for it. I know it's not your fault. She's freaking out, and then Bloodruth scares her off. So then Bloodruth returns back to the swamp, and she's talking to her dad, and dad's like, I don't want to talk to you. I'm mad at you because of a flashback we'll get later on. So she's out and about. Something's drawing her to this area, and she rides her dragon. She rides her dragon out there and sees this castle that doesn't belong. And this is the same castle. Is this the same one from Isom too?
It has to be. Yeah, no, because that was like
right?
her home base. So this is kind of a prequel.
There you go.
Sense,
okay, so
yeah.
same castle. It looks a little bit different, so I wasn't sure exactly. So she goes there, and Gooding shows up, and Gooding is like, "Hey, I got a job for you. We need to go talk to Lillian and Michael about the job." She gets into the contract with them, and Gooding's kind of providing assistance to her. I guess there's like a barrier he can't get into in the castle, but she can get in, so he gives her some stuff to go through the castle and figure it out. She's trying to go in there and take care of whatever ne'er-do-wells are hanging about, because Lillian and Michael want this building. They want this castle for whatever reason. We're not quite sure why yet. So she goes in there, and she goes through, she scares off that girl, and then in the next room, so I had that order slightly out, but she scares off the YAIRA chick, Stefania, and then the next room, there's a demon there named Choke, who's like this weird design. It's like a kind of like this fat dude demon guy. He's got like a schoolgirl outfit on, yeah.
There's basically 3 demons throughout, like in this house that it's like the little bosses that she has to fight until she gets to the final boss at the end. So the first one is Choke.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, Choke, who talks like a caveman, and he has a whole bunch of bodies there that he's just like tearing apart and playing with, and like, me choke, me dance, you me dance, I choke. And so she fights him, and I actually thought this was one of the better fights in the book. I don't know if you agree with that or not.
No.
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 I liked it because she had to resurrect like the dead guys around there to distract him, and then she's got that little vial that she
that was all right.
Clover shot down the mouth. I was like, all right, that's fine.
Well, I was just waiting for the overview to finish before I get into too much stuff and stop every 2 seconds. I don't know.
Gotcha. So eventually she discovers an evil doorway. There's a library there. She fights another demon named Deertick that transforms. She meets Crowley, I believe it is. And she's captured by a fae. She's introduced to a demon named Morningstar. There's a flashback of a vampire that is taking out her family members, one of them, and converting 2 of the other ones into vampires. She narrowly escapes with her father, which is why her father's still mad at her. Felt like they should have stuck around and fought it out instead of escaping. She has like this vision. She talks to her brother and 2 brothers, brother and sister.
Yeah, 2 brothers. One is Abel, which I was like, oh, so is the other one Cain? And he's like, no, it's Jesse or something like that.
It's Casey.
Casey. Yeah, I was like, oh, okay.
So she wakes up. Morningstar has like the upper hand with Faye, and basically she strips, prays to defeat the Morningstar and Faye, and then returns to Michael and Lillian. And the part of the deal was she could get anything that they own. So she's like, I want the castle. She takes the castle, and Gooding is like, I'm going to charge you a bunch. And then Lillian and Michael are like, we're just going to go into, there's some company that goes under, and they want to go into philanthropy and science in order to further whatever their agenda is. So that's kind of the basic rundown and a little rough around the edges, but you get the idea.
Yeah. So let's, how do we feel overall on the story?
The first time I read this, I didn't really like it that much. Didn't hook me at all. And on the reread, I was like, okay, this is actually a little bit better the second time around. I wasn't in love with it, but it wasn't the first read through of it. I was like, I don't really enjoy this. And it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I enjoyed it a lot more the second time around, but it wasn't like a absolute home run. Some of the things that I was hung up on the first read through were still kind of nagging at me even the second time around, but not too bad. What did you think?
So this was the most disappointing book because the fantasy elements and stuff like that is what got me really interested in the character. She's the most interesting power wise of the Rippaverse, because one thing that's kind of a complaint of mine is that the there's not really much diversity in powers of these heroes that we've been presented. Bloodruth kind of a little bit different like that. So I like that, and also that this was advertised as a horror comic. The Sasuke sisters specialize in horror, so I'm like, okay, this is going to be like their best story that they should be able to write, and it didn't hit. And then also there, I was like hoping that some of the issues that I had with YAIRA would maybe be resolved in this one, and it was not. And one of the biggest complaints, not just from me, from many people from YAIRA, was the just dialogue. Yeah, it's just too much dialogue, whether it's inner monologues or whatever in their head, and the back and forth between the villain and the hero is just like, just doesn't work for me. And at first, I'm like, okay, it looks like they kind of fixed that, and then by the end, I'm like, no, this is still an issue that's very much present. So yeah, like I said, all I can say is really disappointing. And there's some things where I'm like, man, like why was this your choice, right? I think like you mentioned the fight with Choke, right? I'm just like, oh, like I had to roll my eyes because we saw that demon in the preview, but I'm like, okay, just make him scary or something like that. But he's like, whoa, no, me chunk, and I'm like, it's kind of like the dark humor thing, and I'm like, it just like, it's just isn't funny. This isn't. It's I love dark humor, love it, but this was not like you're swinging and missing like with the humor with this character. So I'm just like, just stop.
Yeah, the caveman talk I wasn't a huge fan of either.
Yeah.
But I still thought it was cool she used her power. I like the kind of puzzle elements in fights that can, whenever they make sense, that she raised the dead bodies that Choke had there from the summoning that he was summoned by Crowley, I believe, for this like fancy party. He kills all the people, so he's got the bodies around, and she uses her power to create a diversion. I was like, okay, so she used her environment and her powers and solved a problem in real time in order to create the opening that then she could use. I believe it was a gadget. I think it was given to her by Gooding, but it was like a holy water down the
like
throat.
holy
Like,
water
okay.
or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I liked in that
you,
sense.
You do some things that are fine, and you keep skipping over the thing that I really like bothered me was that when she made like the blood armor, and it looked like sci-fi armor, and I'm like, what is going on here?
Oh, I thought
thematically bad.
I thought Gooding provided that to her. Like, hey, I got Gooding's
Did
armor
he?
now in this fight. I'm pretty sure.
No,
but
because that was like her power. It exhausted her to use it.
Oh, I
right?
thought it was something he provided, like but it was the kind of thing though. Even regardless, she puts it on, and within like 3 seconds, it's broken.
It's broken, yeah.
Which I guess that was kind of
Didn't
the point.
She say
like,
this is going to take a lot out of me? Because that was like, okay, so then I'll have to retract that complaint if that's the case. If that was something provided by Gooding.
Double check. Again, I might be wrong.
Yeah, because that then goes into some of the complaints that I had that was before this fight. Was the copious amount of dialogue between Bloodruth, Gooding, and the villain couple that I can't remember their name. And I'm just like, guys, you're just smacking me in the face with dialogue that just didn't need to. It just needed to be like 1 page of dialogue, and it was like 4 pages of dialogue.
Yeah, and there's one thought that's shared, and you're like, okay, got it. But then there's like one more line added on. I'm like, I don't think you needed that. We got the picture at that point already, but
what is she? So she activates the armor, kill these people. I mean, it's like.
I mean, she does a little magic at the top. Maybe you're right. Maybe it is her Bloodruth armor. It reminded me of Gooding's armor, so I thought it was his, but maybe you're right.
And that's a problem. It's like we have all this like dialogue between people that is very repetitive and excessive, and then like when it gets to something where I'm like, what's happening here? It's like, come on, where's the explanation? Do the anime over explaining here, because I need it. I need the explanation of what's going on here. Like one little comment of like, maybe it's like labeled on it like Gooding, property of Gooding or something like that, or like Gooding be like, hey, take this. Maybe that happened. Maybe I missed that. But
she does do the power up at the beginning though, and to your point, if she does power up and that is her the fact it's like this magic, and then it looks like you said like a sci-fi suit, it's a little bit odd.
Right.
In any case,
I'm like, why does it look like medieval-ish?
Yeah, I think that would have been maybe a cooler design,
or
but
something.
I don't know.
Maybe just not that like bothered me because I'm like it's thematically off.
Yeah. Which fair enough.
Yeah.
I was saying that this fight with Choke I thought was the most interesting because the other fights that happen, who else does she fight? Okay, she fights Deer Tick. How does that fight go down? She's running around. She gets a book and she
Well,
like
there's
does something.
Chekhov's gun before the fight happens. There's so much crazy magic in this house that she kind of says, and then she's like, "Oh, this is a book of voids," and then she puts it down or whatever. Like it opens a void, which is kind of how these books are working. They just open it and like spells come out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you were talking to me in our chat, being like, "Why isn't the Deer Tick person using it?" And I kind of like the minimalist design of Deer Tick of the human form, and I was kind of like, keep that, right? But then apparently, like a bookcase falls on Deer Tick, and then it transforms into another demon, and I'm like, too much.
That's why. Well,
too
not
much.
even that.
It just was silly.
She pushes the bookcase onto Deer Tick, and she's like, "I squashed that bug." It's like maybe make sure it's dead. It's like this demon that says its powers are limitless, and you pushed a bookcase on it, and that's it. Now, if one of the books was like, infinite gravity, and she put that on Deer Tick, I'd be like, okay, maybe you're fine, but make sure the thing is actually taken care of. And then once it transforms, it gets caught in that trap. When did she put that trap down? Like, did I miss a panel?
And this is where I'm saying, like, the explanation of the powers, like can she just blood splatter a like pentagram and then like do a spell? Like maybe she can do that. She can like she doesn't have to like hand paint these. Maybe she just like splat like maybe that's part of her powers, right? I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt. So with that
I'm a little bit confused on that.
Yeah. So with that line, what was it you said? My powers are limitless. I think you took that literally. Where I'm just like, this is more of the dumb dialogue from the villains being like, I am the most evil of evil of evil
like
of
Power
evil.
Rangers type, yeah.
And it's just that line very much wrung out that, and it's just like very basic villain, like I'm scary.
It's funny that you thought the Deer Tick, her human form, you were like, I like that design. To me, I'm like, this looks like something that's specifically like we want people to cosplay this, and that's going to be an easy cosplay to do. Because to me, it's just like she's a hot blonde, but the whites of her eyes were black instead of white. Like,
Yeah, well,
like,
cosplay
this demon's a hot blonde.
Well, I shouldn't say nobody's going to cosplay a character that's there for 2 seconds, but people do it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But like the
demon. Sure.
The demon form was just like a step too far. Like it had the like scorpion claws and these like little string things. I'm like, it just looks a little silly.
So, well, she uses the book then, that void book, right, to defeat that one. I'm pretty sure, which is okay, using your environment. But then I'm like, hang on to that book. Like, can you only use it once? Because I didn't like just keep it with you. And anytime there's a demon, just open up at everything that you come across that's bad, and you can get rid of everybody, right?
Well,
or maybe go back to the library because she was wounded. It's like, is there a book there called "Healed to Full Strength"? Like, go read that real quick before you continue on.
Right.
Just
well, that's
the
what I'm
books
saying.
seem so overpowered to me. It's like, go check them out, dude. There's a whole library of like magic books. Go dig through them real quick.
Chekhov's gun, or however you say it, like a very useful trope that's used, right? Like if you see it, it's going to be used, right? That's the idea of it.
Sure.
But it's like, yeah, but like a fucking mini pocket void, like black hole thing, or like that's come on. Like it felt like she pulled it out of her ass, even though it was set up like 2 seconds before. But it's like, come on.
I mean, very useful. But if that was there, I'm just like, what else is in a library? Like, take a minute, take a breather. Like, just go check out what other books are there. Maybe there's something else cool that you might use in the next fight, And she's not expecting the next fight, but still, it's like, just go check out the books real quick. I don't know. And even now, I'm wondering, like, what other books are hanging out in there? They got that Into the Void. Like, who knows?
Yeah.
Infinite money. I don't know.
I agree with you. Well, let's move on.
You can manifest hamburgers by opening it up. Just have a delicious hamburger at the ready. I don't know.
the final of these 3 was, I like the design. It was like a butterfly-ish, like 4-armed, humanish looking thing.
Yeah, the Fae was the name. Yep.
Yeah, the Fae. And then it's like a big plot, like details are released here, which is kind of like, this kind of feels like too big. So first of all, Morningstar shows up, which is, it's kind of revealed that there's multiple hells, I guess.
Yes. There's many different hells.
I like that. And the design from Morningstar was pretty cool. He's got like, a bunch of wings with eyes on them.
Yes, like an
I think I know
angel
where you're
and
gonna
not
go.
like a demon.
What's that?
But it's a cool design, but that's like the biblical angel. So I'm
Well, if
thinking
he's
of an angel
Morningstar, that would make sense.
was he supposed to be the fallen angel? Is that the idea?
Well, that's what. Yeah, that's the name for Lucifer.
Oh, I didn't know if it was supposed to be the same
You
guy, like
know.
he's like riding on his
well,
coattails. If he's like, no, I'm not the real one.
well, that's a
All right,
little bit
I'll
up in
allow
the
it.
air, but
That's
that's
fine.
Morningstar is another name for Lucifer, which there
Right.
probably is going to be another demon named Lucifer, but
That's where I'm like multiple hells. I don't know. Oh, it
right,
was a pretty cool design overall. You're right.
right. So like that apparently is like so there's devils, and they're like these are the biggest baddies I think of like this demon realm ish right kind of thing that's going on. So I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, this is kind of big, and I'm like, so this is going to be a villain going on for a while, right? Like you just set up like the main villain for an arc. No, that was not the case. They do a flashback, and another like big critique of this book is that there's all these flashbacks that happen that aren't really too relative to the story, and it really messes with the pacing. They're
Mhm.
just not done well. It's just kind of annoying, right? How it goes back and
Yeah.
forth.
And that's
Um,
where you get revealed Silk, who's the vampire guy, right? And that's the whole battle where he converts that we were talking about earlier, where he kills the one brother, converts the mother, converts the brother, and then Bloodruth escapes with the father, and that's why the dad's mad at her. To me, that would have been an interesting book in and of itself, like to have that first to get that connection to the family members and
that
build them
was
up
not
because
that dude that whole thing, and that's why a big part of those bother me. This is not a like little snippet for a flashback. This is a story on its own. Like
yeah,
so, yeah,
and
they set up they like him the family are outside a thing, and they get it's kind of like a trap where it's like another one of these big demons. They say it's an ancient vampire. Looks very similar to Morningstar, which I just said that
mhm,
Morningstar is killed off by the end of this. And I guess this ancient vampire is going to be kind of Bloodroot's overall big baddie. But I'm like, but his design is worse. Is not as cool as Morningstar. Like they look
yeah,
almost the same, except he's not as cool. So I'm like, why would you do that? But yeah, no, they set up the family. None of them really do anything, and so Bloodruth has like a fucking dragon, wolves, a bird, like so many all these like summon things, and like the family just does nothing. Like one of them shoots a crossbow at some point, and I'm like, guys, like you have to like this, you have to show them like fight. They had to be doing magic, at least trying to. Like, of course, if one brother gets killed instantly, that's fine, right? But I'm like,
right,
there should be a big magic fight happening right now. You got the entire Bloodroof family, the most powerful, or they're all blood mages, which is
mhm,
just show me something. They didn't, and I'm like, this is lame. And then I'm also not feeling the dad being angry at Bloodruth, which
yeah,
was like kind of hinted at the beginning, or not hinted. It was shown in the beginning that he's upset with her, and I'm
mhm,
like, really that because you didn't stay and fight after he just massacred them all? Like, come on, you
yeah.
did nothing, dude. You were unconscious. Like, fuck off. Like, be mad at
And
yourself.
right. Maybe they'll get to the point where he's like, "Oh, I'm just mad at myself." But to me, you get to the family getting wasted and getting converted, and you're only supposed to care because she does. But we don't know these family members. We don't know their
Mhm.
personalities at all. So that's why I was saying it would have been nice to have a book to set up her history with all of that, so you care about these people, and then it ends in that battle, and you're like, "Oh man, oh they got that dude I liked. He was really cool or whatever," and we'll have a much more emotional weight instead. And maybe they do a book later but because you kind of know how it already goes, I don't know. I feel like it won't have as much impact, which it could have been a really cool story. It would have been a lot of fun to travel around with them and all that. So I don't know.
Yeah. So, all right. So, kind of like wrap this up at the very end with the devil.
Yeah.
They have this fight. He's like, join me, marry me, and we'll be like, you know,
You
we'll
could be
have
my
like a super demon son. And they show like her pregnant, and I'm like,
yeah.
her in a demon form. And I'm like, this is a terrible design. She looks like the trailer park like chick, and it looks really bad because she's like pregnant with her belly hanging out. And I'm like, why? What is with this design? This is a terrible design going on. And then so because there's the guy Crowley who's the one that owned the house that summoned these demons, and his blood is he spills his blood, and then she uses it, and then she's naked, and there's things written on her that I guess she did, and she prays, and the devil explodes. And I'm like, again, out of all the times you're over explaining things, telling me your thoughts way too many times, it's like redundant information. You can't just fill me in what the fuck just happened when she just prayed the devil gone.
Yeah, and she had to
Like,
strip naked before she did that. I'm like, why does she have to be naked to say this prayer? And if you just say a prayer and it kills the demons, that doesn't seem very threatening at all. You just pray at all of them. Like get on a megaphone, like just like set up a radius so it's just super loud for miles, and just like take out all of them all at once. Like, and that's what you're saying. If they would explain a little, and maybe they do it in some other book or something, but in this one, I'm like, why does saying this Latin prayer destroy this devil and fae both in one shot? It was. It's like
well, it's
that.
like I had to
Oh,
be
super easy,
super
barely an
generous.
inconvenience.
I had to be super generous and be like, oh, it's because Crowley's blood. Like he's a super powerful necromancer, mage, or whatever. So his blood is what allowed her to do that. But again, I can't. I'm not writing the story. You're writing the story. You tell me.
And if
Right?
that's the case, is she just gonna like? She's dragging Crowley around. She's like, there he is, and she like cuts him open. And it's just like, come on, we gotta,
Yeah,
strip down real quick.
Constantly just cut his hand off and like, ah, no, I was gonna just like, can I just slit my wrist or something? Like,
goes in the battle with nothing on all the time, just in case a devil happens to show up.
It's like the awesome power scene. Devil's being vanquished. Yeah, I had some other notes, but I don't know if it's really necessarily going to. I think the only thing I'll also mention with that, before we get into the next comment, is that like I felt like the art choice for this, and the art was good, right? And one of the things is like I put YAIRA probably way higher than I should have. YAIRA 1 because of the art, but it's because like the art totally changed when Canon White came in, and then it's like it's just so much better, right? Canon White has really upgraded stuff, but I think the style choice for this, it just didn't have it was darker than YAIRA, but like it's just like the way that Choke popped out his colors and stuff like that. There's something, the shading or something could have been done differently to make this feel more like a horror comic, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you're going for a horror, I like the fact that it's a little bit darker, especially going from this and then reading YAIRA 2. YAIRA 2 is so much.
I'm saying it's
brighter.
not dark enough. It's not dark enough.
That's fair. It could be, but I overall, I thought it fit clearly more than you did.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I don't have the references to go by, but I feel like there's different styles that would have made it feel more horrorish. Like, yes, it's darker, but like still there's like there's a lot of colors that are still popping up. Not compared to like YAIRA is a bad thing to compare it to because YAIRA is very colorful. Very colorful. So like I guess compared to like ISOM, like where the colors are kind of similar. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I get you.
All right. That's our review for Bloodruth. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Until next time. I'm not signing off. I'm trying to do my like edit thing. Because I gotta edit this later. All right, let's see. This is 28 minutes. All right. So we're about to get into discussion. It took a little bit more time than we wanted to on that, but we're about to get into YAIRA 2. Anything we want to talk about before we get into YAIRA 2 officially?
Not that I can think of. No. Unless you have something on your mind. Seems like maybe you got something on your mind.
Who said I have mind? No, I'm just kind of stalling. Oh man, I want to say the Bloodruth, the cover that I have, which is the basic cover. Man, all the covers were really good.
Oh yeah,
yeah, the covers are crazy awesome.
Yeah, the art is consistently good in all of these books, which is nice.
So the YAIRA 2 cover, just fantastic. All right.
I also went with cover D to save a few bucks.
Yeah, it's all about saving money at this point, which is kind of where it's like, when are they going to go to digital? I think we're going to have our overall, like, we'll do like an overall Rippaverse discussion very shortly after these three. All right, so let's just
yeah, I got to check with my local comic shop too. That could be even a part of that discussion once we get there. I actually want to go talk to those guys. I called them on the phone, but I need to talk to them in person and see how that conversation goes. So I'm curious about getting these books in their stores.
But as we're gonna say, okay, so we're gonna now we're talking YAIRA 2. I'll be honest, I don't remember YAIRA 1 too much, just probably because of time and my memory sucks. But this is before I even ordered this, or no, so I ordered it, kind of forgot I ordered it, but
Hmm.
after BLOODRUTH, I kind of already came to the conclusion, and as we've discussed, where there's too many Rippaverse comic books come out, um, I was already after BLOODRUTH too. That it was disappointing to me that I'm like, I'm not going to buy the Sasuke sister books moving forward, because that it's not impressive to me, and that's the BLOODRUTH one disappointing, which is disappointing. I seen them online. I feel like I get along great with them, but
Oh yeah.
I gotta save money, and right now the Sasuke sisters aren't doing it. So, but it was like I have Yair 2 on the way. Maybe this is gonna knock it out of the park, and maybe I'm like, shit, I'm gonna change my mind.
Right.
But guess to spoil what I'm gonna my opinions on this, I did not enjoy this one as well. There was a lot of issues in this. I will say on reread of this, I actually liked it better than I did originally.
I did the
And
same thing.
also comparing it again, because I mentioned how Canon White coming on board has really enhanced the art and the Rippaverse overall. I really preferred this style over the style in BLOODRUTH. It's just something. There's a charm to it. I just really like it, and the color palette that they choose for this is just really, really pretty things to look at, right?
Yeah, for sure.
The ice blast
It's
and stuff.
it's got more of like a, I think the whole book in general has more of like a classic comic kind of feel, whether it be from the colors, the tone. It's just a little bit more bright in general. I think the color choices match the tone of that pretty well. Aside from
Yeah.
the water scenes, but even in the water scenes, if you're really deep underwater, it should be like pitch black. But they have these like real pretty blues and greens that you get the idea it's supposed to be dark. But I agree with you. I think the color in this one was very pleasing to the eye.
It's similar to movies. It's like they asked in Lord of the Rings. They're like, "Where are the lights coming from?" And the director says, "Well, the same place the music's coming from." It's like, we want to see what's happening. Like
Yeah,
nobody's
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
really like when somebody points out. It's like, man, it's really bright in the battle of oh my god, a brain fart and a fucking
Helm's Deep.
Helm's Deep. Yes, thank you. It's like, man, it's
Yeah.
really bright here. Why? It's nighttime though. It's like, and then somebody
Actually, in
points that out. You're
Atlantis, I
like,
wouldn't be
oh,
able to see anything. Yeah.
oh yeah, it is. I guess they got lights back there. Nobody cares. I can
Yeah.
see
At
it. That's what
2,000
makes.
meters, you wouldn't be able to see in front of your face. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Once they did that as part of the story. So I guess
That's true.
overview. Time
Yeah.
for the overview. Yeah,
All right. So, quick rundown of the story. It's not going to have all the details. We get the basic idea. YAIRA wakes to a nightmare of her family burning, and that's going to be something that happens throughout the book, these nightmares. She reminds us of Neptune sending her a message and saving her somehow in the previous book. We know at the end of the last book, she fought the three different people as Yanessa, Magus, Numite. I've never heard his
I don't
name said.
remember. I'm bad with names.
Nuumanite. And then the third
Illuminate.
person. So she fought, and I thought she defeated all three of them. She sinks down into the water. She blacks out. She loses her sword. She wakes up without the sword, but she's got her signature outfit on at that point, and it was Neptune. She's like Neptune. She's in Atlantis, I guess, and so she's like, I gotta get back there. All right. So it then cuts to Stefania. She's training with Alpha Core. She's very angry about everything. She's like, I'm gonna get YAIRA, and you guys are jerks.
Yeah,
YAIRA
this is
then
one of my. I don't have too many notes on this, but that was one of my first notes. Is the Yaira great granddaughter, whatever. She's just a dick to the Alpha Core, and just very
Yeah.
unlikable.
Yeah.
And it's also like, man, these guys should be more serious, and they should not be dealing with this. Why are they even like? She's got issues. I did like how there was like a Solari took her to the side and had to talk with her, but I'm like at the same time, especially with what happens later in the story, it's like this chick's got to like Alpha Core. If we're gonna take you seriously, do something with this chick.
Yeah,
But
and I guess that's our whole character. And as the story goes on, you see that becomes a problem. And I don't know, maybe they'll be like, hey, let's not do that again. I don't know. We'll see what happens. But YAIRA goes to Projexus, Spain to advertise this Atlantis trip. So she's making it a trip that they're doing through Projexus that she's going as, I can't remember her name. Rodell? What's her first name? She's going as Rodell. She's not going as YAIRA. She's going as like her human alter ego, like her Clark Kent version to the Superman, as it were. So she goes there to advertise the trip, and then she's celebrating all that stuff going on with Altona, and then she has another nightmare where Altona turns into like that bug, the Numinite guy or Magus, all that. She ends up exploring Atlantis alone, doesn't really find anything, returns, and Josh is there. Everybody, you remember Josh from the first book? Me neither, because there was no mention. It's just Josh. You're like long lost lover, maybe. Seemed like there's a little something there. Well, which I won't go too much in it, but yeah, we'll come back to Josh and his whenever he first shows up and that whole thing. Yeah, there's a couple things about old Joshy boy. His name's Yashua, I think is what they call him. Yeshua. Yeah. I like Josh better. So there's a flashback of her and him. They then get in the flashback of her and him. It's basically her saying, "I have these powers and I'm going to use them." And he's like, "No, don't use your powers. We're not supposed to." So then it's back in present day, and they get in the submarine. They go down to Atlantis, and there's all the fanfare and everything. You know, they have the TV capturing all these events because she is she's very popular because apparently she was an Olympic swimmer and she does these outlandish science experiments and gets a lot of attention and all this. So even though she's unorthodox in her approach to science, it's so popular that they're kind of like, we'll work with her anyways. So her and Josh take the sub down. They get out. They fight this giant octopus for like a minute. And then they find, I believe her name is it Cleito? Neptune's wifey behind bars down there. Wife. Yeah, Neptune's wife with her kids, and her kids are all these like monster wraith things. There's a flashback of YAIRA leaving Josh to go be a hero, and he's all crying because she's leaving. And then there's a flashback of Cleito and Neptune selling their children's souls for immortality.
Wait, I had written this down. I'll mention this right now.
Mm-hmm.
And this was a part of my issue with the dialogue. So when she's fighting the zombie children of Neptune, the wife is like, "Please don't. They don't know what they're doing." And then at some point she says, "They are indeed my identical twin sons that I bore Neptune." After another other couple sentences, I'm like, "What is that sentence?" I'm like, "Come on, you guys are fighting zombies," and she's like, "Please don't like you have to specify twin sons,
right?"
And they're all twins? Are they all twins?
Right. 5 sets of twins, I believe. Not mistaken. Yeah, I know what you mean. So Neptune sells him and Cleito's children's souls to, that's why they're wraiths, so that they can be immortal, so that they can live forever. Because I guess they live 800 years, but that's not long enough. Yeah. There's a weird cut that we can talk about where they fight these guys, and then they get Cleito, and they take her to Neptune, who they find, and she basically is like, "You never loved me," and all that. And he's like, "Of course I loved you. That's why I got you immortality and sold our children's souls so that you could have infinite life, and then kept you in a cage, so that they guarded that they weren't allowed to go into to be with you." Yeah. I flipped through that like so many times. I'm like, am I just really bad at reading comics, or am I missing panels? I don't know. So YAIRA follows Neptune and then her dead family. Like, who's the dude, her husband? It wasn't Grum. I can't remember his name. Her husband from the other book.
Oh, yeah, I don't remember his name. But yeah, like her YAIRA's old husband from Viking age.
Yeah, it was like, was it Ogrum or something? I can't remember the dude's name. It's very important to me.
I don't remember any of his
names. So he's down there, and like her children, and they're grabbing at her and all this sort of stuff. And she realizes, again, it's a trick. It was Magus. So then she flies up above the water, and the giant bug form of Magus is there. And she's fighting him and getting like really worked up and making these huge waves and, ice tornado cyclone type deals. And it's like a big mess. And it's getting really close to the city nearby. And that turns out that her getting all worked up is actually going to destroy the city. And then Magus isn't actually there. It's fake again. And she's just like fighting the air. So she's about to destroy the city, and then she's like, "I need to stop that." And then they cut back to Stefania, and she punches Ingrid, breaks out, and is like, "I'm gonna go kill YAIRA." And that basically is the end of the book right there. Then,
yeah, like my last little thing. I'm like in big letters. Too many plots. There's too many plots. Too many important. Like, because when you do an A and a B plot, right? Like when you have like a longer story like this, like it's good to have that, but like, make the B plot or the A plot not as important, right? Like, you don't want to take, like, when you have something that's so like important or something like that, like you're just grabbing my attention. You're kind of like, wait, this is important. This is important. Like, what we have to do. It's arranged very weirdly, right? It's just like,
Mhm.
well, now she's like dealing with her nightmare monster attacking the city, and she's about to deal with her great granddaughter while Neptune's also happening. So it's just kind of like, this feels like two different stories happening at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's the whole thing too of there's a combination, there's nightmares and there's also flashbacks. And the
Oh, that
thing
was
that
so
drove me
much.
about this. All right, so there's some cool things in here. We get introduced to Josh, and with Josh, it hinted at that they had a romantic relationship, and she's smiling. She's got huge smile whenever old Joshy shows up, and
A lot of
she
gooning in
immediately
the.
gets naked in front of him to change out of her swimsuit like right away. She's like, Josh, you're here. And I'm like, whoa, all right. So they show them like holding hands at one point and stuff. It seems like there was something between them at some point. So I'm like, okay, we're bringing like somebody from her past. That's it's not a horrible thing. The way it's done is kind of odd, but
Mhm.
whatever. Um, so she has a friend. She's all smiley and stuff. She's not so cold as she was in the first
Eh,
book. But and so at time, there's plot elements that can be engaging, but and whenever I say but, I mean a YAIRA-sized but. I read this I read this book twice, and I still don't actually fully know what happened, what was real, what was not real. I assume Josh seemed to be there. The sub down seemed to be a thing, but
well,
everything that went on with Neptune and the wife and the race, did that actually occur? Because once she followed Neptune, then like the vision started happening. I don't know if the point is that you don't know what happened, but I'm
no,
like,
that's
that's
why I
confusing.
think it's two
I want
different
to have an
plots
idea.
mixed together. Because then, like, if Neptune's not real, then what the fuck is going on? Unless it's going to be revealed that it's actually a thriving city.
I don't
But
know.
then I
Maybe
don't know.
it's
Then it just feels very cheap. It's like, well, then I could have just skipped this plot altogether. Yeah.
yeah.
And then,
Maybe
dude, we mentioned how the flashback things is such a issue. We had Bloodruth. It's like way worse here. It's just like completely crushing the pacing of the story. Bad.
yeah,
It's just like
it's-
information where you're like, I don't need this. I don't
yeah.
need
There's
this. You're not really telling me anything.
one page about her leaving Josh, and she's got like a sword, and she's jumping out like a window or something. She's like, "I'm gonna come back a hero," and he's like, "If you leave, you
Yeah.
can never come back." So I guess that's when she left, but it's just kind of
They
slapped in
are
there.
indeed
So
my identical twin sons that I bore Neptune. Flashback to her bearing having the 12 twin sons. I'm like, come on, dude.
yeah, it was flashbacks and then nightmare sequences, and yeah, it was a
Well,
lot.
the whole expedition to go to Neptune, which we already established that she can go down to Neptune by herself.
Yeah.
And we can assume Josh can as well, right? Well,
Mhm.
actually, he definitely can. We don't have to assume it. We know that.
Right.
And then she's like, well, we're going to get money basically to do this expedition. I'm like, but why? Like, this is not
I
like, there's more risk. Just go down there with and talk with them. Like, what? I don't understand the point of this expedition.
I
And then I
think it
have
was
another
just to
note. There's
like
just we don't have to hear everything she's talking about or she's thinking when she's like first down there, like checking around. We're hearing too much, and then the amount of dialogue that's going between this expedition. I'm like, dude, cut this down. This
yeah.
is just too much and too much over explaining, which is kind of making it seem silly. And that was bad, really bad. Yours.
Yeah. I mean, I assume that whenever they went down in the sub, it was just to bring like, because she's buddies with Altona and Projexis, so I assume it was just to drum up more funding and attention. Because they said in this book, which we didn't get any of that in the first book, I don't think that she is this kind of celebrity, and
Right,
so
just go
I
down
think it
there
was
by
just tied to that.
yourself, though,
Well, she went down
and
once, and there
then
was
get the
nothing there.
funding. Like,
Because where
go
she went,
discover. You don't need like she even points out, she's like, oh, this will be a lot easier without the eyes. That's like fake that the communication went down. So
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, just go
But
down there by
she
yourself,
she
discover it.
did before.
No, but I know,
Whenever
but
she goes
she
for the
hadn't
swim.
found what she needed to, so she had to come up and she planned to go back down because she hadn't meet
Right.
Neptune, right? So it's again,
Mhm.
just go down there, meet Neptune, have a talk, and then we were like, okay, now we're gonna do the expedition after we already know everything's fine.
I too, the on the cover from the thumbnail we used, it was the A cover. I don't have the A cover, so it's not featured on here. She's holding a sword. And the sword she's holding there, I don't believe it's the same sword from the first book, the one that she used in the fight at the end that she killed the one dude with, and then it vanishes. And I mean, it's a little thing, but it seems like it's kind of a special item. You would think whenever she's back down in Atlantis, I know she was busy, but you think that she'd be checking around like, oh, man, I should look for that sword while I'm down here because I lost it, and it might be here somewhere.
It's right here,
So,
right?
yeah, that's the one. But in the first book, I feel like the sword design looked a little bit different. Maybe I'm mistaken.
That's
got
good
like a
looking
He-Man
sword.
type
I mean,
thing.
they're probably gonna change it between artists or whatever.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
But I was hoping to see the sword again because it's cool. I was like,
was
go get
cool.
your sword, man.
Good thing I liked how she used. So she's fighting the twins, the 5 sets of twins. And they're like zombies that can't be killed. But then I liked how she used her ice powers in this fight. Right, like it felt like she wasn't using the ice powers as just a generic blast. Like she used it to freeze the tentacle off of the giant octopus when it attacked her, and then she like froze the group together to get like one big smashing punch in. I like that. That I'm like, okay, we're using ice powers like ice powers. But then like we said, we're going to talk about the unkillable things. She can kill them all day, cool. But then the next scene, after she smashes two of their heads together, you assume they're not dead because they could just keep coming back.
Right.
She's back to the mother's with it out of the cage that she can't get out of, and YAIRA's down there too. And I'm like, okay, something got edited out or something. What happened?
Yeah, did they let her out of the cage, or did she somehow get in and the cage is then attached to the city? It seems like they freed her. Or is it supposed to be that all she had to do was distract the wraiths and then the mom could get out? But there was
Or is
something
this
that
part
wasn't
in her
clearly
head?
communicated. I don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know. That's why
it's just
I'm like, oh,
it's
don't
too
know.
much confusion because like sometimes you can be like, oh, that's really like, oh, we don't know what's real, and it can be entertaining, but like in this aspect, it's more annoying. Like
Yeah.
I'm definitely like annoyed
Yeah,
of
if
how
there
the
would have been
information is presented.
a payoff and a revelation of what exactly did happen and what did not, it would have worked out okay. But I'm with you. I was more annoyed by the end. Speaking of annoyed, the missus picked this up and was flipping through it, and some of the gratuitous butt shots and boob shots. She's like, "What is this?" I was like, "I didn't draw it." Like,
You're in trouble.
I'm just reading words,
it
baby.
it was a lot.
YAIRA's got nothing on you.
Look, comic book fans, they want their gooning material, and I'm not. Look, I'm a libertarian. You know, if you want your gooning material, you can get it. But be advised that if you're buying a YAIRA comic, you're getting butt shots. So that's that's going to sell. Sometimes that's this is my character. I just want to look at her drawing butt. And that's fine. Well, the old comics did it all the time. What do you think Starfire was? Starfire was just a nude character. A lot of these artists used porn stars and traced over them.
No, seriously?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of smart. Like, just skip the nipple. You got the perfect female body to trace over. Yeah. But yeah, if you didn't know that, now you do.
Yeah, it's in the little thing. So, the more you know.
But yeah, no, that is definitely an aspect of this story. There's a lot of ass in this. But to me, it's just I don't care. To some people, that's the plot, and that will sell it, and that's what they want from the Rippaverse. That's fine. To me, that's not. I care about the story and pacing and things like that, and it's just disjointed. And I already mentioned how it's just like this is definitely moving forward until there's like a change in stuff. I'm done with the Sasuke's books coming from the Rippaverse. Now, here's the thing. Sasuke's don't bear the entire weight of what I think is a failure on this, right? This is also, there's editors on this, right? And editors need to be coming in being like, there's too much dialogue. There's redundant information, because I didn't catch it because I was more skimming in my second read through. I do remember specifically where it was like bubble. It was the same person. It was like what they said to somebody and what they thought. And it was the exact same information. It was completely redundant. Like, dude, cut that out. I mean, like, this is a comic book where you got comic book readers who guess what? they don't like a lot of words. They don't. They like their pictures to communicate stuff, but that can't always happen, right? Sometimes pictures can't communicate it, what they're saying, for example. So, but if you can narrow it down, right?
Mhm.
So,
yeah, I like I said at the beginning, I'm the second read through, I enjoyed it more than the first. If I could get this, if somebody handed me YAIRA 3, I'd be like, oh, cool, I'd definitely check it out. Or if I could get my hands on a copy where, shipping is so expensive on these things. If I could get it at a cheaper price, I'm not against reading more of it. I didn't hate it to the point where I'm like, I'm totally out. It's just more of,
yeah.
there's so many coming out. It's a finance thing. If there's one that I'm like, you know what, this story, I can just have somebody kind of fill me in on the important lore aspects after it's out. And if I have to miss one, I'm like, yeah, we're 3, what happens with Stefania and all this. It's like, I'd be interested enough to read it if I get my hands on it. But like you said, it's the one that I'm going to be like, let me see what else is coming out first and kind of put that
And
off
that's
to
what the hero stack, so you can combine your stuff, your shipping together at any point. So if you order one this week and then another one's released next week, you can just stack it together and you'll get it when they all arrive. So it's in one, which that's smart. I like that. But okay. Any last thoughts on YAIRA 2?
No, I think I covered everything on it that I wanted to say.
Yeah, so too. All right. So, notes.
I was gonna say with the hero stash, the only thing about it is though, if you have books that ship at different times, you might have to wait like 2 or 3 weeks before you get them. So it's nice to save on the shipping that way. But I want it now, so it's like, dang.
Yeah. Well, it's like like how excited are you for it? Like I think what a lot of people are gonna do is they're gonna stack their thing with item 3 because that's the big one.
Yeah,
that's when we get a final arc. And if you notice, I haven't been like, oh, let's rate this comic. I always just don't like rating things with so much limited information, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like rating something is better to do on like an arc, right? So definitely after ISOM 3, gonna rate that arc. And I know I've done it in the past, but it's always like, oh, it's really difficult because we don't know how it can go because we have like 20-page comic. It's like, how do you judge a 20-page comic?
Yeah, to me, it's the kind of thing that even in this video, like let's say YAIRA 3 comes out and it's phenomenal, and you might look back at this and be like, oh, you're contradicting yourself. It's like, yeah, because the information that you get changes and it changes your perspective on the other books and things like that. So I'm open to that. It's a possibility, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I mean, this is the thing, right? Yeah, he didn't hire Mike Barron to edit, and so Mike Barron, I liked Gooding that came out, so he's another writer that we got for the Rippaverse. So I'm not completely sold on him yet. We'll see if he's one I'm going to be continually buying his books from the Rippaverse. Obviously, we say we can't buy them all. Eric has been making some really great decisions. Like I've mentioned multiple times, Cannon White, such a great decision to bring on the team. Chuck Dixon, as we're about to get into the Great War of Separation, Chuck Dixon's books have been consistently entertaining. And great hire. Great hire. And the thing is, it's like, people are like, oh, well, the Rippaverse needs Chuck Dixon, and Chuck Dixon doesn't need the Rippaverse. I don't know how true that is because, writers, when we have ideas, especially we're not writing like a whole book, we got plenty of them. We got so many ideas going and so many stories we want to get out. But if you're making a comic and you're not the artist drawing them, or you are, it's like you can't get that stuff produced. Well, the Rippaverse can get those stories produced, and it's like, well, it isn't necessarily his stories, even though we got Zaylen coming out, which is a Chuck Dixon original character, and the Horseman. It doesn't matter. You could take your stories and transfer it into a different character. Like you could do that easily, right? And that's what most people do is when they take like the soul of a story and then they just put it into another story that fits something more that somebody wants, right? I think great writers are able to do that. But yeah, there's been a lot of good hires. I think overall, Rippaverse is looking pretty good right now. But I think get into the Great War of Separation.
Absolutely.
So, the Great War of Separation, the most recent book that came out from the Rippaverse, written by Chuck Dixon, which this is a backstory book, like, which is what people have been really kind of wanting from the Rippaverse, especially from the release of ISOM, is this is the kind of information uh, in a story that we've been wanting from this universe. So give us the roundabout.
Yeah, so this is kind of rough. My notes on this one might be a little bit more shoddy, but that's okay. We open up, we got young Avery at school. So little Isom is there, and he's talking to his teacher about how the country's divided up, and basically they're talking about it being separated into these different large factions. Probably won't pick it up, but you can kind of see it there. Out in the west, you got
so that was my
funny name.
That was my one question. Oh shit! That was my one question from this. I was a little confused. So this map is like present time, so they were already kind of separated before the actual Great Separation. Do I have that right?
Maybe.
Yeah,
because Avery says something about 3 different boundaries, and she's like, "Oh, your book's out of date. There's actually 5 now." But so I guess, but
right. Well, she said we're all still Americans, but as in later as we see, they're no longer Americans. I feel like so that was the one part where I was a little confused on.
Yeah, it's funny. The United States are like just it's like what? It's like Maryland, Virginia, PA, you know, the Northeast. That's the United States now. Yeah, you got what, the Mid-Southern Alliance, and then you got the United States is also down Texas, and then Greater Florida. So I guess it was the United States was Texas and
the Northeast.
The other section of the Northeast. Yeah, it was both of those. So I guess the separation is whenever that portion of the United States that encapsulated Texas becomes its own thing.
Yeah.
So anyways, young Avery's at school, so that's cool to see, you know, characters you're familiar with and, you know, kind of their origin in some way. Basically, there's Texas soldiers. They capture some border dudes. And there's like a wide variety, like a whole bunch of different border people down there that are crossing that aren't supposed to be. There's an explosion. 12 guards are taken out. There's a bunch of wounded people. And then 2 Blackhawks, like helicopters, are sent after these cartels to be like, hey, who did the bomb? And one of them gets shot down. And then the other one just unloads and takes out a whole bunch of the bad, you know, like the cartel people and all that sort of stuff. But whenever they return, instead of being hailed as heroes, like, hey, you took out a bunch of the, you know, the bad guys or what have you, they are instead imprisoned. So the country's then divided, like the whole, everybody's talking about what's going on with this. You know, were they heroes? Should they be in jail for breaking like laws of war or whatever protocol and all that sort of stuff? You get some nice moments with Avery's family, the pickle jar and all that, and his dad and his sister and all that. The attack killed, there's a cartel called the Soyuz cartel leader. And so in that, I believe in the helicopter fire, there was a, the leader's son was killed. So he wants vengeance. So the leader of this Soyuz cartel then blows up a border checkpoint. It kills like 70 people. They're armed with a bunch of weapons. They start getting in firefights and all that. And like this line of dialogue, it said, Texas felt like it had just been sucker kicked in the balls. Only you have to have the balls to feel that way. And then it cuts to Governor what's his name? McCloon, something like that. And he just wants to pass the buck. You know, he's being a politician, doesn't want to really make any hard decisions there. Ultimately, his hand is pushed by, was it Lieutenant Governor, the guy that's with him, and he ends up pardoning the pilots. So like, we got to do something. This is getting to a fever pitch. You know, people need something here. You know, it's getting crazy. So he pardons the pilots. At that point, Avery's dad thinks he's going to be called up into service. And then you get some, is it the bomber pilots go out? They're not supposed to go out, but they get in planes and they blow up like a cartel dude's house, the Suez cartel. They're like, you know what, we're going to take this fight to like the head of the snake.
Go rogue.
Yes, they go rogue, and the 3 of them basically bomb this dude's house. They Gatling gun a whole bunch of people. And in that massacre, they take out the leader and they take out a bunch of the cousins. But the leader has a brother who's in prison, so he's now in charge. And through the prison system, he takes an underling. And he's like, hey, you got to go, and you're going to take out this governor. And the guy's like, all right. So then goes, takes out the governor. The lieutenant governor then takes over. Avery's dad does get called up. And the new governor that takes over for the dude that was just assassinated, he doesn't want to work with the U.S. president. He swears, you know, the oath to protect and serve or whatever it is, Texas, not the United States, but Texas specifically. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, you know what? we got to do our thing. The DC has not been helping us. They've been trying to hinder what we got going on down here. They don't want to help. We just have to take it into our own hands to protect Texas from all this stuff going on. So they start deporting non-Texans that are like military because they don't want anybody going rogue. They're like, we need people that are loyal to the state, to Texas, and everybody else can go and get. And then civilians start fleeing the capital because they're worried there's going to be an attack on it, and that includes Avery's family. And another line of dialogue in the car when he's like, they're driving out, and he's like, yeah, you know, we thought about leaving you behind, sis. Just like that little moment. There's little bits of dialogue in here. There's not tons and tons and tons of exposition.
Charming, like, realistic dialogue between the characters there.
Just like one line that, like, gives you that peek inside their lives. So, Solari is basically, he's working for the DC military and all stuff. Yeah. And they want him to lead up a attack, more or less, to go in and quell what's going on in Texas. Like, yo, you're going to go down there and you're going to stop all this stuff from happening. He's like, no. And they're like, we're going to bust you down to private. He's like, you know what? I'm out. And he gives him back his stars. He's like, I'm just going to be a civilian.
He throws the stars.
Yes.
Yeah. And like, look, I feel like Chuck Dixon has a very good understanding of the military. And I feel that coming from the character actions. One thing, I'm like, he comes out, I see 2 stars on him. That means he's Major General. And I'm like, ain't no way he's a Major General. He's way too young. And then they're like, don't you want to be the youngest Lieutenant General ever? I'm like, oh, okay. He acknowledges that he's too young for this. All right.
So he says he's not going to do that. He throws his stars, and he's like, I'm going to bust myself down to civilian. So he heads back to Texas.
I love that line.
Yeah. So he heads back to Texas to go get involved with what they got going on there and turn his back on, DC. So the Soyuz cartel is running out of funds. Things aren't looking good. Texas is really battening down the hatches. They're setting up like really strong military control. A lot of people are getting involved. They're all enlisting, and they're doing their part to keep Texas safe from these cartels. They have like the border crossing stop and all. So the cartel is like, yo, things are getting hairy. We're running out of resources. They're talking to the dude in prison whose name escapes me, but he's the leader now. They say, we should just call him Zeno. And he's like, all right, let's get Zeno in here. Or he says, call him Zeno. And Zeno is the super bad. He's an except that shows up. And you see him then. He, I think he's in the Mexican military, maybe. He basically, they machine gun him a whole bunch, and he can absorb bullets. They don't seem to hurt him. And then he transforms. He can like morph into one of the guys he's getting shot at by. So he takes on that guy's appearance. And then the U.S. president wants to deploy excepts into Texas to end the war. There's a character named Stallion who's introduced, and they're like, Stallion, what are you going to do? He's like, I like to break things. Which again was like a little line there that captures that whole, like his whole character in one line of dialogue. And the look on his face is like, I like to break things.
So one thing that wasn't really communicated to people, which I found out from somebody else, is that like this apparently is like, it's going to be like a 4-book series. And as we know, the second one's already available, which I will get. Is just money's tight, but I will be getting the second one of this. So I guess within 6 months we're going to have the whole 4 stories. So a lot of people are saying like, oh, it just felt like it ended abrupt, and I really wanted more, which is not a bad problem to have. But apparently it's like, well, you're going to get it soon, which is awesome. This is not really, at least this portion of the story, it's not a superhero story, really. Like there's a little bit of that in there. This is a war story, obviously. Great war separation.
Right.
This to me has to be such a difficult story to piece, not just to piece together, but to pace this. And Chuck Dixon does it. This is like the way that the sequence of the story and the events told is done in such an enjoyable fashion where you're just you're not slowed down, you're not it just the pacing is just enjoyable, right?
I agree.
I'm a lost for
yeah, I know what you mean. It moves and it's easy to follow. And it's like you want to see what happens next. And I mean, I got through this book in a hurry because, again, there's not tons and tons and tons of dialogue either. So you're seeing the pictures, like, then this happened. There's a picture. Then this happened. But it's done in an interesting way. A little glimpse of the family, how these things are affecting them. Now we're back to like the big moves on the political level. And now we're back to see how the individuals are affected. And you get, it's all in there. And it's just everything's sprinkled in at the right times that doesn't bog things down. It's just like, I mean, I flew through this so quickly, and that's what you were saying earlier. I got to the end, I was like, wait, what? Wait, no. Like we're not done yet. I need more. And
Well,
then
that's
it's like,
like
I gotta buy
good
another one. I thought
stories
this
are
was
going
a
to make you
standalone.
just freaking go.
Yep.
And another thing that I really, really liked about this was the tie-in of Avery Isom in this as a kid, and it didn't detract at all from the main story. It just was like it. It's just there's good and bad places to fit that in. Where that exact point is arbitrary, but you know that's where the artist's mind comes in, and Chuck Dixon knows where to put that in, so it doesn't distract and take away from the story. You're not just kind of like, oh, we're back to Avery. Come on, like this. Why'd you do it now? You know that doesn't happen. And it's just that little tie-in with the Rippaverse's, I'd say, most important character, Isom. It's just really nice getting that and to be like, oh, I can't wait to see what happens to Isom and his family in the future parts of the story. Like, fantastic. Love it.
I also like to, I mean, Brian Solari is one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character in the Rippaverse.
You know, great Italian representation. I love Solari. I love Lions. Still Alpha Court. Like, dude, that was my that was my favorite line when I was in the military. Better ask for forgiveness than permission. I said that shit all the time because I was a little shit in the military, and I just like Solari. I love him. he's more Boy Scout obviously than I was. I was a little piece of shit, but no, the only thing I was like, I wish he wasn't like Superman powers, because I'm like I like the more niche powers or whatever, but
gotcha.
But still, as a character personality, love him.
Yes, and this book makes you like him even more, because he's like, they give him this special mission, like, we're gonna give you all this stuff, and he's like, no, and not only just no, like the hardest no I can possibly give you, and I'm like, yeah, this guy's like, he's putting his own principles and stuff, which I don't know if that would actually happen, because I don't know, like military isn't like, you just do whatever your superiors kind of tell you and that's it, and the fact that, do guys actually turn against that and be like, no, or is that seen as a bad thing, you know what I mean?
Which one? What?
So if you're given orders or an offer by your superiors, aren't you supposed to just be like, yes, sir, and just do whatever it is? Like if you say, no, sir, so I'm out.
If they give you an unlawful, so typically, even if this does happen, the person probably would follow the order because of their past being in the military that long. But not always. If you give an unlawful order, that is an order you do not have to follow. So in Solari's core, his Texan core of what he believes is that he was just given an unlawful order. I'm not going to attack Texas like I am a Texan. That's an unlawful order. And if you're trying to tell me to do that, then you're not on my team. Take my fucking rank. Fuck
yeah.
Which is like the biggest fuck you in the military that you can give is by throwing your rank off, which is, again, it's like it's like, how like every guy like daydreams about like, oh yeah, like shooter comes in, I'm gonna fucking karate chop him and like do whatever. Well, like having a moment where like you get so pissed off and you just throw your rank off, that's like a daydream that military guys have.
So it was a big deal then. This wasn't something that happens regularly. This would take a lot of a lot of intestinal fortitude in order to actually do this, and he did. So I was like, oh, this guy, he's like a man of principle, and he'll even put aside his entire career and all this stuff because, again, he stands on principle. So just
he's been set up like that. Like I said, the whole line of better to ask for permission, for forgiveness than permission. That's the type of guy that's not necessarily going to follow he's not going to just get in line just because you said so necessarily, right? And that's why I said I was a little shit in the military, because I piss off a lot of people. Not that I was right every time I did it, but it was just like they're ordering us to buy new boots. I'm like, I'm gonna wait till the last fucking day. I ain't buying these boots, because they're all like, no, just buy them now. Fuck you, I'm not doing it. I turned out right. They swapped the order at the last day, and I was the only person who didn't spend $200 for new boots. But that's beside the point.
So there you go.
But dude, people were pissed. They were like, "You're going to get these boots," and I'm like, "Well, I'm going to wait till the last." Yeah, it was a whole thing. Yeah. So more
I was gonna
Solari,
say,
please. Just more
yeah.
Solari.
I don't know his age though. Like whenever he was in this, I didn't realize it was him at first. He got the shaved head because he's in the military and all that stuff. And I'm used to seeing him with a little bit of hair. Once it like they said it was him, I didn't know. Like maybe it was in the trailer. I didn't know that. So I was reading. I was like, oh, it's him. No, and he
Like
was older
maybe
than I thought because
40s. Because they called him
in
kid. I'm
in
like,
Alpha
can you
Core, you think he's in his 40s? Because I'm trying to figure out Isom is probably in his 20s, right? I don't know. Because
he
if
could be
he's
in his
like
50s now. No, I'm thinking like in this comic to be a major general at
yeah.
40. I'm pretty sure at 40
Okay, so if he's already
is
40, then
still
yeah, he's in.
really young. Well, maybe he's his late 30s. Late
Okay.
30s.
And
Yeah.
Isom, I would guess, is probably like somewhere between 10 and 13, somewhere in that range. So
Yeah.
if you flash forward ahead. Anyways, I didn't realize there was that much of an age difference between Isom and Solari. So I was reading this, I was like, oh, whoa, what the heck? And it took me a second, but I was like a cool surprise. It's sort of fun to go into
so
the
I
books
don't
not
need
knowing
the
everything.
origin of all that. I did think that this, I don't know why I thought this, but I thought we get into a little bit of origin of some of their powers. So I'm really hoping we get like a ISOM power origin, right? And
Yeah.
it's not like we don't need the origin of everyone's powers, but I mean, I need some of them, right? I guess we kind of got that with, well, I mean, YAIRA is an alien, so we know what's up with that. We kind of got that with BLOODRUTH, not really. I just feel like with a character like Isom, we need to know, or if it's like a world like where it's the X-Men, it's the mutant gene or something like that, or My Hero Academia where it's just a gene, right?
Yeah. And with the end of this book, because they're putting the DC's putting together that group of Accepts to go in and try to end the war in Texas. There's a little picture of them, and of course you're introduced to Stein, so he's going to be their leader or what have you. But the other people, I'm like, what kind of powers are we going to get? Like it's fun to be like, oh, what's this kid going to do? There's a handful of them in the background there,
and I want unique powers.
tall blonde guy,
like I know Alpha Core,
purple hair.
The villains we got, the fire guy and the lightning guy, but like we got them for a second, right?
Yeah.
I want to see more unique powers from the Rippaverse. There's just too many characters right now that are just strong, and some of them, a lot of them can also fly, right? A lot of them are strong and can fly. And then you got YAIRA, who also has ice, but just doesn't really use it. I want to see unique powers. Maybe that's a me thing. I feel like I'm not alone on that. But yeah. I think anything else you want to say on Great War of Separation? Because I think we're just going to talk Rippaverse in general, and that also I don't make a video for that. But
yeah, no, I think I think I said everything I want to.
Critique.
It's a good book, and I'm looking forward to more.
You pointed this out before I got to it. It's too much Spanish. Well, it's just like it's okay to have like dialogue in a different language, and it's like, well, you're not really supposed to understand them. And that's fine. Or like what they'll do is they'll just translate and say it's in Spanish. I think obviously they didn't choose that. I think there was just too much Spanish to the point where I'm like, I feel like
you're missing out on an important conversation. Yeah. And I used to be fairly fluent, and as I was reading, I'm like, oh god, I've forgotten so much of this. So I can get bits and pieces, like every other bubble I could figure out. I could sort of piece it together, but I know what you mean. Even I struggled, and I studied it for years ago. But
yeah, it just makes you feel like, well, like this is, I don't know, like I don't want to learn Spanish for fucking.
Then you got to get out Google Translate, type it out.
Yeah. Just too much. So that was like that's my last bit of criticism. Hopefully that's adjusted on. We don't get as much of that. Again, a little bit here and there, totally fine. It's just too much. But yeah, okay. That's our review for Great War of Separation. Definitely get this. Like I said, I'm going to continue to buy Chuck Dixon's work coming from the Rippaverse moving forward. I'm definitely getting the second one, and I recommend everybody else get the second one as well. Right. All right. So anything else we want to discuss with the Rippaverse in general? Now that we've gone through all those 30 reviews, now we can talk to the chat. I've been ignoring you, chat, because, well, I don't want to put that into the video. So
I thought I had the chat open. I can't see it here. I don't know, because did you want to do like get together at another time to do that Rippaverse state of, or did you want to do that right now?
Nah, I think we can do it right now because we don't really talk about it much.
Okay. I can probably do like 20 minutes. So with that, I think the biggest thing, like you mentioned earlier, I think there's a lot of good things going on. I know we were pretty critical of the some of the two of the books that we read, but I don't think it's like these books are
Shotgun Sisters
garbage. These
books,
are
yeah.
yeah, they're not bad. It's
Well,
just I
as
wanted
a
them to be better than they were. That's all.
right, and as a company, you're gonna have like people are gonna have their preference of writers, and you're gonna have just
Oh,
writers
sure.
that are generally more accepted by the audiences than others, right? That's gonna how it is. Not everybody's a winner or liked by every critic, right?
Right. Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah. Okay, Mr. Reese. Yeah, well, I'm not fluent in Spanish. Yeah, you get a little extra for that. But hey, these are American comics. We're speaking Americanese here. All right, the customers are Americans. Although I guess if the primary customer for the river is probably Texans, and they're all bilingual down there.
Yeah.
I
And
don't
maybe
have a
that's done
Texan
on
friend that isn't
purpose to
bilingual. Yeah,
But I think there's a lot of good stuff going on, and I feel like the quality of the books. I think that it seems to be getting you're getting like higher levels of good books, I guess. Like Horseman was really good, and
Horseman's
I thought
really
yeah, Great War was really good, and there's a lot of cool ideas coming out with Zaylan. Obviously, Norfolka. Norfolka's the one everybody's been waiting for since Isom 1 dropped. Everybody's like,
I
"Yo,
don't
where's
get it.
Norfolka?" You don't get it?
I mean, like I'm
Oh,
sure it's gonna be good or whatever, but I'm like okay, I just don't understand the hype around it, but there's a lot of hype around it. I think Eric also doesn't understand the hype around it either. Because I think I've heard him make comment on that. But
I
Zaylan is
mean,
like one of those comics again. I wouldn't have gotten because I really didn't get too much out of it from the advertisement. But again, it was written by Chuck Dixon, so I'm like, fine, I guess I'm getting it because
yeah,
he's just knocking it out of the park.
I agree.
Um, yeah, Horseman is my favorite as well, and
Norfolka, I'm hype. I mean, I'm a music guy, so the fact that they're a
yeah, dude.
band, I'm like, yo, awesome. This is gonna be like superhero, like kind of Scott Pilgrim type thing, like a super
I
band.
very
That's gonna be
much doubt that. It's just they just do band stuff on the side.
no, they have to like fight with their guitars or something.
Look,
What if they
I'm
just have like a
sorry,
concert and like a
Eric isn't the genius that is Joseph Battaglia that is able to incorporate the music into the stories as well as
oh yeah, oh, yeah.
as I am. I'm sorry, the evidence shows otherwise. I like he proved me wrong on that.
I want them to do a
Um,
move like, guys, we're gonna do a circle pit, and they like put the bad guy in the middle and they like open up a pit. That's what I want to see from that book. That's what
yeah,
I'm hoping for.
they're like, yeah, exactly. You see, again, this is the masterpiece written by Joseph Battaglia. You'd have spells that are cast with music, and you have the mosh pit, like
Yeah, yeah.
just a bunch of guys pop out of their like illusion magic, and they're just like,
Or like
headbutting.
the main guy's special move is he breaks a string and it snaps and hits the guy or something. I don't know. Do you think he'll do a CD? Yeah, no,
That
I
would
hope so.
be that'd be the
People,
best thing you could do.
I think a CD
That's
is unlikely, but music, if they just had like a video or something of that nature, and I do think that might be why Norfolka is taking so long. I'd like to think that there's going to be a tie-in with music somehow. Obviously, Eric, very musical guy, and I think there's going to be there should be. I'm gonna be very disappointed if there's not a delay with it because they are planning exactly something like that.
well, I think Norfolka is one of the big
Oh
picture
yeah.
characters, and that was why he set them up so early because it's like basically being like, guys, just get ready because there's big picture things happening that I've
Yeah.
already conceptualized. Um, I'm not just like making this up as it goes, as a lot of writers will do. George R. R. Martin, right? Where it's just like, I don't know, will you get another story? Who knows?
Now, hear me out. There's no chance this would happen, but what if Norfolka is actually going to be a real band and they're going to tour and they have the get up and everything and it's like this huge spectacle and they could do the meet and greet events and all. It's not going to happen, but how cool would that be if they did? Where it's like a whole nother.
Sure.
I'd be all. I mean, I'd love that.
Yeah, but then like most of the people showing up be like, "What's the Rippaverse?"
Well, no, you go because you know it. It's like a tie-in thing,
I don't
It's
think there's a big enough customer base right now. But
actually, I'm glad you mentioned that because we were talking about just the state of things and shipping being as expensive as it is for the time being, anyways. Even with the hero stash, which is a cool feature. But people were telling me, they're like, well, what if you just go to your local comic shop and just pick them up there? That way you can save on shipping. You might pay a little bit more than cover price, but what's that?
Is it people me?
Oh, was it you?
Yeah, it was me. I was like, yeah, maybe you can save some money if you go to that.
It was okay. It was Bats then. Yeah, I forget it was you. Yeah. So I called a couple comic shops around me, and they were just like, the what now? I was like, Eric July, Rippaverse, ISOM, YAIRA, Alpha Core. They're like, nothing you've said I've ever. Those are words. Nothing's ringing any bells. And I don't know if that's, small sample size. I only called 3 stores, so I don't know if that's the experience everywhere. But I thought that was interesting because I thought they would have at least been like, oh, yeah, we've heard of those. We don't carry them, but I'm aware of it. It's just interesting to me that some of the comic shops, it's not even, at least around me, the ones I called. Again, small sample, but wasn't even on their radar, which surprised me.
Could be a failure of the comic shop and them not trying to do any research. I mean, a lot of these comic shops are not just failing because of Marvel and DC coming out with bad stuff. They're failing because they're not doing the work to stay in business. I don't know if necessarily investing in a Rippaverse is going to help them stay in business, but maybe it will
help me to.
You think
shipping,
at least at least know of it, right? You should at least
that's
know
what I'm saying. It's it's yeah. It seems like they made quite a splash.
It's also funny. It's our internet bubble, man. It's like we don't realize how small our internet bubble is. It's just kind of crazy. Yeah, it is crazy. Although I did have a coworker back when I think I assumed 2 just recently came out. I had a worker when I was working for the Air Force, and it was just like he was a nerd like me. I'm like, so you ever hear the Rippaverse? I think I knew that he watched FNT and stuff like that. Just like, oh yeah. He thought about getting into it, but it wasn't But it was just interesting to be working with somebody who had also heard of it, outside of a connection with me, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I got to go talk to the guy, and maybe it's the kind of thing where he'll be like, "Oh, this is cool," and maybe they will start carrying it. But I don't know if it's common. I don't know if my experience is unique in other places. Like if you're in Texas, where it should be more well known, can you go to a comic book store there and pick up the newest Rippaverse book and all that? I don't know. I haven't been to a comic shop proper in a very long time. I've wandered into a couple, but I haven't actually gone in and talked to the guy about getting books ordered and what that is like. Or so
you think they could do a shit? What's it called? Recruiter? Not a recruiting fee. What's it called when the person that goes out and seeks talent? What's that person called?
A scout?
Yeah, I don't know. So I wonder if the Rippaverse can do some kind of pay out somebody, just like a small compensation to be just to get Rippaverse books into a comic book store.
Oh, like a street team, like just promoters or something?
Like an incentive. Be like, hey, if you're a customer and you're able to prove that you are the first order from the shop for the Rippaverse to get it in stock, we'll give you I don't know, $20 or something, something super small. Well, I mean, something small, but at least it's hey, I could I'll take $20. But that gets it into
we got a deal for you if you want
a new store. That's big, right? So you having a incentive program like that might be kind of cool.
Yeah, and maybe that's something that's in the works. I mean, it's this company is still really young and just getting all the pieces in place. I'm sure they have all kinds of plans, and that'll come in time.
I ain't saying that they're getting screwed over, which is what we've been hearing. It's probably true.
Yeah,
and has too much info on this. What's going on? No. But I'm excited. I just I think I've mentioned it to you. I'm like, man, if again, maybe Mike Baron is another one of those great writers. I know he has a history with the Punisher and stuff like that. But my comic book history was very scattered. I don't need to get into that, right? It's just a failing of comic books and the things that they mentioned about where do you start with the comic book? I've always had comic books bought. My uncle has a fucking entire room with just long boxes. Sometimes we bring some to me at Christmas, and I'd be like, "Oh, cool! Like a comic book." I have no idea what part of the story is, but I enjoy them. He's actually in a comic. He actually his brother wrote. It was his brother. His whole family is do you know that Mormon show, Big Love? Yeah, his sister wrote for that. So,
I don't think I do.
I'm sorry, I'm getting off topic, but yeah, he's my uncle is in a Marvel comic and his as a character.
Oh, cool.
In it, yeah, a very, 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 very small character, but yeah.
I'm with you. I read comics for like a couple years as a youngin, from like 9 to 12ish maybe. So I had a a short collection, like maybe one long box total, and then I tapped out completely. And I was just pure video games until I can't even remember who I ran into, but it was around the time I started getting into the indie scene with Royce's people and all of that, and then that's when Eric started getting bigger and bigger. And I was like, well, this is cool. Like this is just a fun thing to be behind, and that kind of got me back into it. But I'm not into the mainstream ones. I just have a handful of the other ones. So to your point with Mike Barron, my experience with him has been like Smokes the Fox, Florida Man, what was the Sherlock Holmes.
And then, I know what you're
Gooding. So I don't have.
I guess my point was is if they get one more like awesome writer where it's like I have to get every one of their stories like Chuck Dixon, it's just like, bro, Rippaverse is gonna be killing it at that point. Because at this point, like, you know, the art's just fantastic. Like I had that critique for BLOODRUTH about the style, but like as a whole on all the art, I'm just like, this is great. This is working. And at no point I'm like, yeah, there might be a panel. Like I think I meant to mention on YAIRA too. There's like when they're showing the 5 twins, sets of twins, there's like a goofy photo of one of the kids, like, you know? And but yeah, no, if they just get one more of those writers, I think it's gonna be really cool to see what happens.
I agree, and even with you know, obviously we have our issues with the way the Soskas write, but I mean, a lot of people love them. So they are scratching that itch too. It's not like every person writes just like Chuck Dixon. So the fact that you're getting kind of different tastes covered as well, covering your different bases, reaching different types of comic fans, I think is a good strategy. Even if it's not a book that's for us, that's fine. We found ones that are within that same universe, so that's great. Yeah. So I think you're absolutely correct. They got everything set up. Plus they got Rip Ascend going on, and you know, that could, I assume that will continue to grow.
Okay, that's one thing that so the Heroes package doesn't work with Rip Ascend, I think.
Oh, the Heroes Stash. They should have called it the Heroes package. That would have been better.
Oh, I forgot what is Heroes Stack or whatever.
Your mind.
No, because I went to I was gonna be like, well, it's for $5. I might as well add the Gabriel one to it. And then it went because the Rip Ascend's on a different website. And I'm like, oh, I can't stack this together.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. So I'm like, maybe that's something that is gonna be fixed in the future or something like that. But that I'm like, because I'm not getting Gabriel at this point. I would have spent the $5 on Gabriel, Guardians or whatever it is. If I could have stacked that in, 100% would have. So it's the Rip Ascend stuff is definitely be getting a lot more attention, and even vice versa if those hero stacks could work more like that. Definitely want to see that happen, especially if they get like a Rip Ascend client that's like producing like 4 comics a year. That's a lot of like that. 4 comics is a lot, which is where we're really like we mentioned, we already got 4 comics. We're in the first quarter. We're just getting out of the first quarter. And we already have 4 comics. Counting the Rip Ascend. It's crazy. And I assume we're probably going to get even more volume of stuff coming up in like a year or two. So
right. And the thing is, it's like physical is great. I love physical, but it is, after a certain point, it's like, oh, geez, I just have like a bunch of boxes. And I'm like, am I going to go back and really read all these comics I have? So I know some people are totally against digital. I get that. But to me, if they had digital options, and maybe it's something like they have the membership where you pay X amount of dollars per month and you get access to whatever the new digital comic is, I would probably do that, assuming that it's not going to be like $70 a month or something. If it was like 20, maybe 25. Once you get past that, I have to really think about it because that's, getting to be expensive. But if it's $20 a month and it gives you access to the newest books, and my guess is they would do something like you don't get the brand new ones. You get like the former catalog and then access to the new books maybe a month later. But you could still sell your like collector's cover variants and all the signed and graded and still have that going on. But I'd be curious if they went that digital subscription route, what that would do for their
I feel like Eric's never gonna fold on that one. That was like a huge thing. I know it's a huge thing.
So expensive, man. It's so expensive.
I know. But maybe it'll change in the future. But
you're.
And I always like it's so annoying that people is like, oh, I don't really like read comics, but I've consistently read manga. But like we don't like we consider manga and comics separate for some fucking reason. I don't get it. But it's like, I read a lot of manga. But it's and it's like, and I know like Eric is acknowledges, it's just like, this is just so much easier to get into a manga thing because it's like, I don't need to read other stuff to get into it. It's like, where do I start? Oh, issue 1. Issue 1 of what? It's just issue 1. What are you talking about? Chapter 1. Start there.
Right.
And then like you get things like My Hero Academia, which is like kind of like, it's a superpower kind of comic book superhero characters universe, and it's told in order. Not all the arcs follow the main character. They do go off to other characters, but it's done in a singular order where the timeline fits right. I kind of feel like that might be somewhat what Eric is trying to do with the timeline and stuff to try to keep it more concise. But that's always been something annoying with comics and why it's hard to get into. And I'm curious if that is going to be an issue that eventually Eric runs into. But
I mean, I guess
time will tell
at some point. But yeah, good problem to have, I guess, when you get there.
Yeah, I guess. But we will see. The important thing is that I do know that he's going to make it so it's at least easy to follow which one you're going to get to. Like, oh no, you go to YAIRA 1, right? Like, I know he's not restarting the universe, so it's not going to be like, oh, YAIRA 1 of the Ultimate Universe or whatever. So thankfully there's none of that if Eric keeps his promise, which again, it's just like a lot of people always put that out as being part of their favorite part, where it's like, that's important because that's how the big comic book companies have kind of screwed over customers, and it's not something we like. And it's like multiple timelines and fucking multiple universes. No, thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
But all right, I think we've done it for the Rippaverse. Guys, looking forward to more content on my channel. I just had a fucking kid, so not a fucking kid. I had a kid, and yeah, so I've been busy. I've been really busy, and I will be trying to bring more content to this. I have so many videos planned right now, and also we will be continuing to talk about the Rippaverse as it comes out. But like you said, going to be a break for the Sasuke's work as for right now. So definitely checking out Chuck Dixon. I think Zaylin will be on next.
There's like 3 coming out all at once. There's like it's Zaylin, was it War Great Separation 2, and then Isom 3, all within like 8 days of each other.
Yeah.
And that one's gonna be that one's thick. I think it's like 180 pages or something crazy.
180 pages?
I feel like it was thick. Now I gotta double check. I feel like it was a thick one. I remember reading about it. I was like, oof, it's gonna take a while to get through that one. Let's see. Isom 3. You're wrapping up. I can check it real quick here. 144 page count. Thick boy. And they've already sold 8,000 of that. It's already at 500,000. 36 days to go.
Ripazine 3, yeah. Oh, which I've been like, I'm not getting the Ripazines. I've heard the Ripazines are really good. And also like I've met Caro. She just wrote the most recent one, and I'm like, my pocket's got to be saved at some point.
It's the shipping, because the magazine is $7. And whenever I got the other 2 magazines, the shipping was more than the product. And I'm just like,
yeah, but even though it's just like I gotta save $7. Like even if I pair it with another shipping, I'm like, I still have to save $7.
Sure.
Here and there. I know, and I know, and also it's because it's a magazine, so I'm like, how much story am I getting? And I'm like, I don't really care about like the magazine part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, you get some cool introductions to some other characters with I can't remember the dude that dresses real cool.
I heard that was really
Salvage
good.
PI.
Yeah, it was
cool.
PI,
Yeah, he was an interesting character. I didn't care for Saoirse or whatever.
Saoirse,
She's just like giant boobs and kicking butt and shooting guns, and I'm like, this is not my scene.
Yeah,
I'm not against but it's just too much.
I probably wouldn't be too into it because I typically I haven't watched any of the John Wick movies because I'm like, I feel like I've seen John. I'm sure if I watched John Wick, I'd be like, oh, I was really enjoyed by that. But I'm like, I just don't care to. I want fantasy and sci-fi added to my stories. I want like super stuff in there. And it's not to be like, hey, I'm not going to enjoy it, but I'm like, I'd rather spend that time with the other, that element of mysticism, not nonsense stuff. So, so yeah, a character that's just shooting stuff like that, not usually me. Now, Horseman's a little bit different because he's like the Batman vigilante that's like going against the super, right? So
yeah.
But all right, guys, like I said, I'm gonna end it here. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching us. I appreciate it, and like I said, look forward to more content. And since you're on my channel, as always, guys, I got really bad news for you. Well, maybe not bad news. It's good news. You're retarded, especially if you watch this this far. But it's not that you're retarded just for watching this. It's just kind of a fact of life, and it's just you either acknowledge it or you don't.
Uh-oh, retard alert! Retard alert, class!
Presenting